AI is epic, no doubt about it. I use it all the time, and there's obviously this big fear that it's making people dumb, right?
Yeah, our stance on it is that technology is a tool for us to use, and it can support us to be able to be more productive, to perform better, to make us more profitable, and give us greater peace of mind. Our approach is technology is not good or bad, it's just how it's applied. Like fire is a form of technology, and it could cook your food, or it could burn down your home. Right, just how it's used. First of all, you could use AI to test your reading speed, your reading comprehension. When it comes to learning, simple things like, Jim used the word neuroplasticity. Explain neuroplasticity to me as if I am 8 years old. Like that's wonderful, right? It could give you some kind of base knowledge in a very short period of time.
Hi, my name is Aggie, and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond. Hello, beautiful beings. Today on Biohacking Bestie, we have someone I don't have to introduce to anybody, I think. Jim Kwik, the brain expert, a dear friend of mine, and the author of Limitless. Now we can see the expanded edition over here, which I'm so excited to talk to you about. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So a little backstory for those of you who don't know, I met Jim 5 or 6 years ago. I was, the typical travel influencers. I was a typical travel influencer, and a lot of people at that time and these days put me in this box, blonde, on Instagram, she's probably whatever. And you never put me in a box. You always just saw me for being a human being. And you were just warm and open. And I want to start our conversation about how to be limitless with how to not put yourself in a box, how to approach people without judgment and just seeing them for who they are as another human being.
Wow. Well, congratulations on everything. And thank you again for everyone who's tuning in. I was put into a box early on. I had a brain injury, and a teacher said I was the boy with the broken brain to all the other kids, leave, as a way of saying, leave this kid alone, stop teasing him. But I know what it feels like. And so I feel part of what I did was I was kind of marginalized, and I always kind of sit off to the side in class and didn't want the attention, and I would just watch people. And I just, I got curious, especially to people's suffering and their struggles. But I felt like it was unfair that I had this label because you're not born with those labels, right? And, it comes through experience and expectations and other people, external environment. But I'm highly sensitive because I also, as a coach, I want to see the potential in everybody, right? I would assume a good coach or therapist or, parent, that they would see a version of that person, and but I love our friendship. And wow, years really go by. It's like dog years, in this world. It seems like instead of 5 or 6 years, it's like 35 or 42 years, without a doubt. But congratulations on everything.
And thank you for seeing me, and thank you for just not judging me right away. And I think it was just so beautiful to see my journey now. And I know you don't consider yourself a biohacker, but I feel like more or less we were able to kind of get into the same space, which is like motivating people to show them that, don't put yourself in a box. Life is so beautiful when you just put yourself out there. Ultimately. No, whatever that space is called.
I love, sharing stages with you, and also seeing you at the events, biohacking and not, there's two parts. And I've been doing like cold therapy for over 10 years. I met Wim Hof in 2013. Speaking
By the way, Alexis is here.
Sorry, our CEO, my business partner of 17 years, and our CEO is here. Yeah, we met Wim even 2013 speaking at an event in Boston. So I've been doing cold therapy every day, since then. But I've been doing yoga nidra. I've been doing a lot of stuff. Yeah. But it's to take care of the hardware. Like we teach in Limitless Expanded the software, how to read faster, how to improve your focus, how to be less forgetful, remember names, and all those speeches and everything we do here in Hollywood down the street. But also you have to take care of the hardware too, right? And so I look forward to from
So
you
what are the
also as well.
biohacks that you do? I know you're not a
Yeah.
biohacker, but just so let's talk about the hardware before we dive into the book.
Yeah. Okay. So
You were the first one to introduce me to the mat. What's the mat called? The one with all the crystals?
Yeah. So we have a lot of shared equipment and everything, So I want to give people options, and we can mention some of the specific things that I do, and then also nature's, sometimes often better alternative that's free.
I often think of biohacking as just like, it's like a shortcut to what's already available in nature. Of course, you can go and swim in a cold river, and it's going to do the same, the fancy $7,000, cold plunge.
Right.
But it's a little more convenient to just walk outside.
Absolutely, no doubt. But giving people options. So like in the morning, I will wake up, and instead of touching my phone, I talk about having a to-do list, but also not to-do list. And for me, touching a device like out of bed or while I'm in bed at night, it's just an absolute non-negotiable. I can't do that because I don't like the way it makes me feel. Because I'm highly sensitive to the light and to the content, and I want to be in my parasympathetic rest and digest.
Would you say you're highly sensitive or just highly aware what it does to your brain? Because I think we're all very susceptible to phone in the morning, but we're just so used to it that we stop being aware what it does to our body unless we take a proper break.
Same thing with diet. It's the same if you eat a diet that's nourishing and it helps you flourish, and then you eat something that's off of that, then you just become sensitive to it more than if you ate that cake all the time or those donuts and that French toast all the time, right? You would be more reactive, and I feel like I've trained my mind in a way that anybody can, because I'm definitely not special. I had my brain injury and I lost my grandmother to Alzheimer's, all these different things. But when I wake up, the first thing I do, and this is not biohacking, but I'll get to the biohacking, is I just have gratitude. And it's not like my morning routine doesn't take like 3 hours, right? Sometimes it did, on certain occasions, especially on weekends where I need to recover from a big trip. Like, you just landed.
I just landed from Bali after a 24-hour flight 2 hours ago.
And I'm so appreciative that you were able to accommodate this and just land and be able to have this glow on you and be like...
Basically, Jim said, I only have this Tuesday available in LA. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm coming back early from Bali. And here I am 2 hours ago. I was still at the airport.
And it means everything. So, so when I wake up, and I really want to deliver for everybody and turn this into a little masterclass, because I love your community, because I've had you on my podcast.
Yes.
And so let's I do this mental experiment where I imagine myself coming back at home and a family member asked me, how was your day? And I was like, I crushed it. Today was amazing. And then I just ask myself a simple question that anybody could ask themselves. It costs no money, it takes very little time. What had to happen in order for me to feel that way? Right? What had to happen in order for me to say, today was amazing? And then I work backwards from that. So I began with the end in mind. And it's not the 200 things on my to-do list. It's like I look for 3 things personally and 3 things professionally. I keep it to the 6. And it could be walking my dogs. That could be a personal thing that if I get my steps in for 30 minutes and do that, then that's just one of the things. But I don't leave it to chance, because I find that if you pick up your phone, it trains you not only to be distracted, but also reactive. So obviously every ring, ping, ding, app, notification. And I love social media. It allows people to connect, right? And allows us to, share our message. And sometimes, doom scrolling and context switching. You could go through 1,000 different contexts, and your brain just not really geared for that, doing that all the time. And when you wake up, you're in this relaxed state of awareness, and you're very suggestible. So the first thing you do is distract yourself. You flex your distraction muscles, and you wonder why you can't focus at work or in school.
And there's no amount Jim Kwik then, right? Like once you have so much phone time.
And the thing is, and I'm not saying this is perfect, but behind every principle, there's a promise, right? So people don't have to do anything strictly. They could just experiment and judge. Because I think ultimately, it's about agency. It's about personal power. It's you have responsibility, to be, do, have, and share what you want to. And who am I to say, this is how you should live your life? But these are what I do, and maybe behind it, there's a principle that you could do it in your own way. Because there's definitely a science and art to this, right?
Yeah. I love that you say that if you do it for the first time, it's a mistake. If you do it for the second time, it's a choice.
Yeah, yeah,
which I
yeah,
think
yeah.
it's really powerful, especially with
Yeah.
the phone, right? That it is a choice that you're picking it up in the morning, almost like a habit.
Yeah, and that's the problem when we get unconscious about things. I think the first thing we need to do is get mindful and conscious, because what you're aware of, that's the first step to creating any transformation and change, right? And every day you have a chance, because every day you have a choice. There's a quote in Limitless from a French philosopher, and he says, life is the letter C between B and D, where B is birth and D is death. Life is choice.
Choice.
And we are the sum total of all the choices that we make, right? Where are we going to live? Where are we going to focus on, spend time with, and what are we going to do? Who are we going to spend, all this stuff, right? And I believe these difficult times, they could distract us, which they're doing a good job of, or they could diminish us, or these difficult times can develop us. We just decide. So the first choice I make is to feel grateful, because I really feel like gratitude is the foundation for everything. I know a lot of wealthy people who just are miserable because, and it has nothing to do with what they have. They have so much more than most of us.
I mean, you would know the best. You work with A-list celebrities.
Yeah. And the thing is
people.
The people that are at that level, like another thing, reframing just wealth is just like, what do you have that money can't buy? Like, I wouldn't trade a lot of the things, like someone be able to listen to this? Would you trade your hearing for that, or your ability to see, or to be able to feel, your friendships, for all? So that makes you just appreciate, because what you appreciate appreciates, it grows, right? Because I feel like, and you don't have to wait for a greater life to feel grateful. You could feel grateful and have a greater life automatically. Because I also know people who have very little resources, but they are genuinely happy. And they're loving, and they're just fulfilled.
Even with little resources, like you said, you have access to the internet, you speak English, right? Just by you watching this, you already are so much more ahead than most people on the planet.
And so, exactly. And so with technology, it's a tool for us to use, but if it's using us out of habit and, just boredom, then it's using us. Then we become the tool, and that's not the goal. But going back to some of the biohacking, I love nature. So I wrote the largest chapter in the book is on memory improvement, because I think memory is a foundation for learning. And I wrote it in Greece because I discovered that there's a goddess of memory, in ancient Greece. And she gave birth to the 9 muses of science, literature, and art. So isn't it interesting that the mother of science, literature, and art is memory? Yeah. Wow. And so, but there, I pulled from not only the writing this book, the latest neuroscience and adult learning theory and everything around that in psychology, but also ancient wisdom. Like, what did people do before there were printing presses? How they remember things, right? And so, I'm very excited about this. But also going back to this, the ancient wisdom, back in like Babylonian time or Greek time, like ancient Greek time, they used to think everything was made of 4 elements: air, fire, water, earth. And so I started experimenting in my life where I was like, I want to get those 4 elements in my being first thing in the morning.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. So, in no cost. So I'll just go outside and I'll get grounded, right? This is transfer of electrons. And, it just makes me feel good. Regardless of the science, just getting on the ground just makes me feel good. And people could get a PEMF mat to duplicate Earth's frequencies. For me, barefoot, ground, on the grass, something simple. So that's Earth. And then I hydrate. We could lose up to 1 pound of water when we sleep through respiration, perspiration. And I had Dr. Lisa Mosconi, she's a neuroscientist and nutritionist, on our podcast, and she was saying just a 2% dip in hydration, dehydrated, could dramatically affect your cognitive health and performance. And staying hydrated on the other side could boost your reaction time, your thinking speed, upwards of 30%. So we could lose a lot of water, because your brain is mostly water, 70+%. So I'll drink water. I'll get the direct sunlight, which we know the power of that for biohacking. Your eyes are the only part of your brain that's outside of your skull, and it helps to reset your circadian rhythm. One of the most important things you can do for better sleep that night is to get direct sunlight first thing in the morning, not through windows, because it could filter out spectrums of light. So that's the fire. So I have earth, water, fire, and then air, fresh air. If you wake up in the morning and you have those mental cobwebs or some mental fatigue, I think one of the best things, we could go weeks without food, right? We could go a few weeks easily without food. You could go a few days without water, but you can only go a few minutes without air. right? And so I'll do my breathing. So I'll get the earth, water, fire, and air in my body, and that could take all of 12 minutes. So it doesn't.
And it's free.
Yeah, and anybody could be able to duplicate that, even if you're outside and it's not sunny. I mean, this is beautiful, but even if it's hazy, you'll still get the benefits and the brain benefits. Now, if people want to use the fancy devices and they have access to it in their city that they happen to live, I'm all for it. You know, I have a lot of things, probably more than most, but I didn't start that way. You know, when my parents immigrated here, my dad lost his parents when he was 13. They couldn't afford in Jakarta, you know, and so I spent a lot of time in Indonesia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so, you know, he came here to live with his aunt and left his siblings behind, and, you know, we lived in the back of a laundromat that my mom worked at, so many jobs. And my grandmother, who was that aunt, not really a grandmother, but I only knew her as that, raised us, and you know, she passed of Alzheimer's when I was 7. So it informed, with my TBI, my head injury, and my learning challenges, and losing someone close to me to Alzheimer's, you know, really informed what I do today. And so, yeah, it's interesting that our struggles, you know, can lead to strengths.
It's beautiful. It's not really staying in the victim mentality, but using those hardships to serve other people, right? And I love what you do to people in general, to you know, your commitment to Alzheimer as well. So that's amazing. I also know that, you know, a lot of people say that they try not to be on their phone, but the reality is very different. But in case you ever text Jim on WhatsApp, the message doesn't go through, so you basically go offline. Airplane mode. So tell me.
I'm not suggesting that, again, you know, because a lot of people, they have to be in touch with family and their work and everything.
But do we? Like, that's the thing. Do you really need to be online?
I want to give people, I mean, I want to challenge people, certainly, in terms of what they believe is possible. But
yes, you're a very busy person, and somehow you go airplane mode basically throughout the day.
I think airplane mode is one of the most important functions your phone has, personally. Besides the screen, especially at night, that it could, you know, the light could fool your mind and think it's still daylight, so we don't produce the melatonin to be able to phase in that parasympathetic kind of sleep mode. But also, it's the human brain just didn't evolve to be able to process, like, we have the access to everything in this device. And
I love you. I think you said that being on your phone 24/7 is giving people access, putting their agenda above yours.
Yeah. So not only does it rewire your brain for distraction, you know, and you're flexing that muscle first thing in the morning if that's what you're touching and interacting with, but it also, when you're in that relaxed state of awareness when you first wake up, you're also becoming very reactive. That one message, a voice message, a social media message, an email, a text, WhatsApp, it could totally hijack our mood for hours.
Yeah. I mean, been there, done that.
Yeah, and why do you want to, like, if you're going to go and lead as an entrepreneur, a biohacker, whatever age or stage you are in life, why would you start your day just reacting to everybody else, fighting fires, and, you know, as opposed to being proactive and designing your day and saying, these are the 3 things I want to accomplish, and I'm not going to touch my phone until I just do one of these things, maybe.
Yeah, which is funny. So I originally started as let's just call it motivational coach. And then I was like, you know, I'm just going to motivate the hell out of people, and they're going to just do things. And then I realized, wow, if they don't take care of their biology, if they don't take care of the diet, right, and the phone and the sleep, there's no amount of Jim Kwik or Tony Robbins that get them out of bed, because you're just working against your biology. So I really like that you actually added the nootropics in the book. And so let's dive in. What else is new in the book on top of the...
So this book... For people who don't have it, this is an owner's manual for your brain. When the original book came out, we're very proud. It swept all the bestseller lists. I love that you say we. It's so sweet of you. Well, because it takes a village, for sure. And, you know, it's one of those things where it swept the bestseller lists, and it overtook Obama's book for 6 days, almost a full week, as the #1 nonfiction book in the world on Amazon. And I'm saying this more because...
And can we just say how many reviews you have? Because that's super impressive.
The original book, it just came out a few years ago, has over 18,000 ratings and reviews just on Amazon.
And then another 13,000 on Goodreads or something like that.
It did well. But what I'm more proud of is 2 things. Like, first of all, this conversation is happening. You know, I feel like that our brains I want to remind people that we are the pilot of our minds. We're not the passenger, right?
Yeah.
We could direct it and take responsibility and have agency over it. And so I think it's good to have these conversations about the things that pull us away from the things that really light us up. I feel like some people are burnt out, maybe because they're doing too much, but most people are burnt out because they're doing too little of the things that light them up, that nourish them, that make them come alive, right?
Which especially for women, feels a little selfish.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and I think you also talk about it, that self-care is not selfish.
Yeah.
And it's your responsibility to fill your own cup first.
I think so, because, if somebody's listening to this right now and they are the person that people go to, their friends or at work, you're like their person, or the family when things are going wrong. I feel like that part of self-care is not only eating the best brain foods and optimizing your sleep, all the things we talk about in our podcasts and books, but also it's falling in love with the person in the mirror who's been through so much and is still standing, right? It's within you, and you inspire people with your grit and your grace. And I feel like you do need to fill up your cup. My friend Lisa Nichols says, don't even just fill up your cup and pour out of it. She pours into herself so much that it actually overflows into the saucer, and she pours from the saucer. So it's just another way of looking at it. But you can't give what you don't have, and you don't want to be burnt out.
Beautiful. So for someone listening to this right now, my audience is mostly women, and I think there is this sort of like pride into putting other people ahead of us, right? And I think one of the biggest takeaway from what you teach for me is that everyone is smart, and if you are not smart, you're doing something against your brain. And let's just figure out what is it about your habits or your boxes that you have put yourself in, or your diet that is making you feel otherwise. But we are all smart.
We are, and it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. I realize that doing this for 30 plus years and working with people of all ages and stages, and when people see me at events and I'll memorize 100 people's names on stage or do these things, I always say, I don't do this to impress you, I do this to express to you what's possible. Because regardless of your age, your background, your career, your education, financial situation, gender, history, IQ, we all could do this. We just weren't taught. There were no classes on how to do this, right? So that's why I wrote this book. Is not only for an owner's manual for your brain, but it shows you very tactical things you could do to have better focus, better memory, read faster, understand more what you read, solve your problems, as well as all the hacks, like, the chapters on focus, chapters on accessing flow states.
And memory as well. It's so funny. So we were getting ready to film this episode, and Michael was like, I was going to tell you something. I completely forgot. He's like, wait, do I need to walk back?
She's like calling you out.
No, I was like, don't worry, we have a brain expert coming, so you're in good hands. But he was like, I think I need to walk back to where I had that thought because of the location. And he walked back. He's like, I know.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why, is because all learning is context dependent. If they say content is king or queen, then the context is the kingdom. And it's sometimes the location, even when you forget someone's name, some people will go like, where do I know that person from? Because the context will give you the content.
Oh, interesting.
And also we anchor memories to our environment. They do these studies where they'll put people underwater and have them memorize like lists of words. And then they'll take them out and test how many they recall. And they'll submerge them back in with obviously breathing apparatus and test them underwater. And in which environment do they remember more in?
And what's the answer?
Underwater, because that's where they learned it. Right?
Incredible.
Because unconsciously you encode your environment to the content. So
how can we use it to our advantage?
Perfect. So like, for example, if you need to give a presentation at work, studying in the place where you have to give the presentation will help you anchor it unconsciously. If you have to take a test and you study in that classroom, it'll be anchored. But most times you can't do that. So what do? Simple things. Out of the five senses, one of them is extremely linked to memory, which is your sense of smell. Right? And, and probably because as hunter-gatherers, if you smelled something was rotten or, you need to be able to recall it, to be able to know it's poisonous or harmful. But what if you took some amazing, unique smells and you had it like that lip balm or that essential oil or that cologne or perfume on while you're studying or preparing to give that TEDx talk, and then wear that same fragrance when you need to perform it.
Beautiful.
Right, because it get anchored. And then also if you use specific fragrances like rosemary, things that have been shown to help with focus and memory, right, certain citrus also as well, then that could even further enhance. So if you're chewing on some gum and some people say, chewing gum is good for your memory, depending on obviously the quality of the gum. But if it's a certain flavor, having that same one when you need to be able to retrieve that information. So that's a way of, if you can't do it in the environment, then bring the environment into you. And then
it's so great because it's like sometimes when someone peels an orange, reminds me of my grandpa every single time, because he used to peel oranges. Like I was
That's
like,
amazing.
I cannot like smell an orange and not think about him.
Yeah, we all have a fragrance or food that we could have, and it could take us back to when we're kids.
Oh, that's
the power of our memory. Yeah.
So super helpful. Any other focus techniques that you can share for a modern woman who is juggling a million things at a time, and she feels like, I just can't seem to focus?
Yeah, our community is more women than men also, and
women
I feel
awesome.
like our CEO is a woman, our team is 70% female, and so yeah, it's and we donate the proceeds to build schools for girls in Ghana, Guatemala, Kenya.
Oh, I didn't know.
And also Alzheimer's research for women. In memory of my grandmother. Women are twice as likely to experience Alzheimer's than men. And so yet most of the research is done on men and treatments done on men. So we just really want to bring that to light. So we're very passionate about it. But in terms of focus, yes. So focus is on a beautiful day like it is today. You remember being a kid playing with a magnifying glass, and you would burn like leaves and stuff like that. And it's interesting because that point is that light is very sharp. It's very bright. And isn't it interesting the words we use? Like when we describe someone as you're really bright or you're really sharp, what are we saying about that person? That they're really smart. They're intelligent, right? But maybe they're not more intelligent. Maybe they're just better focused, right? And so it's interesting with all the ambient light here, you might not see like a 50-watt bulb, but if you focus it, it could be a laser that could go through that wall. And that's the power of focus. But yet when we grow up in a society full of rings and pings and dings and app notifications and social media alerts, how do we maintain our concentration, right? Even when you read, how many people get to the end of a page and just forgot what they just read because their mind is wandering, right?
Especially this idea that we can multitask, right?
Yeah.
So doing 5 things at a time, it just doesn't
so hard. I mean, women are a little bit better than men at it, but yeah, it's more task switching, right? You're going from we can't do more than one cognitive activity at once, and what it costs you is 3 things. So the enemy of focus would be like trying to multitask and be distracted. But 3 reasons why you want to focus on one thing. Number 1, the thing you think you're gaining, you're losing time. When you task switch to go from one thing, let's say you're writing and then you go to checking email or so, you have to shut down. Like it takes 5 or 10 minutes just to regain your focus, right? So you lose time. The second thing you're losing, you're going to make more mistakes. We get to work with a lot of doctors, and it's been shown that surgeons that try to multitask during operations will make more surgical mistakes. I mean, think about driving and texting, right? It's like, it's worse than driving drunk sometimes, depending on the alcohol level, because you can't do those 2 things really well together. And if that wasn't a reason enough to focus and not multitask and more monotask, right, focus on one thing, besides time and mistakes, energy. For the women that are listening right now, if they feel like brain fog or mental fatigue, yes, it could be part of the diet, it could be a number of factors, but also when you're doing an activity, part of your cognitive web is lit up. And in order to do something else, you have to shut this down and turn this one on. It takes a lot of brain glucose. So if people are tired, it might be, because they're trying to do too much at the same time.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. How has your brain changed since being a parent?
Wow. We haven't talked about that.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I haven't even talked about that on my podcast.
Oh, oops.
No, it's great. I mean,
do you feel like it has changed? Because it's also harder to focus when you have a baby.
It has effect myself and my wife for sure. Definitely more is landing on her and her responsibilities, you know, how we have it set up. And I admire all parents, but especially mothers, that doing what they did. I don't even know how my mom did it, you know, with you know, working so many jobs and having three of us. But I would say, I mean, I wrote this for, you know, for my son. This is our firstborn. He's 10 months old.
Oh, you did?
Know,
Oh.
It's not, no, it's dedicated to that, but it's one of those things because I wrote it because I updated this book and added, you know, over 100 new pages and research and things to create momentum in your life and post-pandemic world. And how do you build learning agility, and what are the best nootropics, and how do you use AI to enhance your HI, your human intelligence, right? And so many usable things in addition to the speed reading, the memory, the best brain foods and everything. But also, you know, it deepened my commitment to the next generation, because I feel like we're not prepared for the world that we're living in right now. At least school didn't do that.
You said that, right? Like that the school system is built for the, you know, from the times when it was no digital.
Yeah, I mean, it was started originally by like churches, and it started universities, and it was based on rote memorization, where, you know, a teacher would say something and the students would repeat it, and that's the wheel, like rotary, like a Rotary Club. It's a wheel, and so the first half of the wheel is a teacher saying the fact, and then the other half of it is the students repeating it out loud. And we don't do that now in school, but how people study is just repetition, and it's the most inefficient way of learning something. You know, there's always frequency. Just think about working out. There's frequency, duration, and intensity. Think about marketing. There's frequency, duration, and intensity. So if you're working out, you could get a certain result by, you know, doing more reps, right? If you could also spend more duration, more time on that reformer, right? Or more time on the treadmill, or more time in the class. Or you could do something so intense, like a lot of the biohackers do, using the cheat machine and the ARX and the Carol bike, high intensity, because it's intensity, and you could get similar or sometimes even better results. So same thing with marketing. You could frequency, you could put that ad out many times. And duration, you could have a longer sales presentation or a longer sales video. Or you could have something so intense that touch people emotionally and it's so relevant to them that they just can't forget it and they have to buy. Right? But same thing with learning. You can learn something with frequency or duration, you know, repeat it over and over again, or study longer duration. But if you make it so intense, you also can't forget it. And the best thing about intensity is it doesn't take time like frequency and duration does. And so I'm so passionate about showing people smarter ways, because many of us can't work any harder than we are already. Yeah. Right? And so we have to be wiser for sure.
And I love that you say that the best students are kids, because they use play to like kind of like help with that intensity. I feel like your next book will be like Limitless for kids, because I would be very curious what we can do, or what one can do as a parent to help our child be smarter right off the start. Because it's like what you did in your life, you kind of felt like you're not that smart and kind of work your way back, which seems like, you know, you kind of quote unquote wasted 10 or 15 years of your life feeling not very smart. And same goes for me. We only finding out all of these biohacks at the age like 35. I wish my parents had awareness and a little bit of practice to help me learn, not instead of just making me repeat boring concepts, right? So I'm curious, and you don't have to answer obviously, but is there anything that you know that you will be practicing with your son right off the start to help him just get super smart and limitless?
Yeah. So it's interesting, when I approached parenthood, I thought I would teach the baby and teach them like everything. And so far it's been the opposite. I'm learning.
Ah, beautiful.
Learning how to be present, reminding myself how to be playful and curious. Like this kid, just like everything is just wonder and awe, right? And so I feel like we can learn from anybody, and that keeps you humble, right? Because it feels like everybody has had a different life experience. We can learn from everybody, but especially with children. But in the areas that I focus on, it's always mindset, motivation, and methods. That's the Limitless model. It's a Venn diagram that if you feel stuck in some area of your life, and then I'll talk about how it applies to parenthood. If If you feel stuck, so Limitless is not about being perfect. It's about advancing. It's about progressing. It's about growth, right? Doing what you thought you couldn't do. But if you feel like the opposite, limited, then you're stuck. So if you think if you're stuck in a box in your income, or a box in your impact, or a box in your health, or your reading speed, right? That box is three-dimensional. So the three forces that contain you are the same three forces that will liberate you, unlimit you, right? And it's 3 M's, only 3 M's. It's your mindset, your motivation, and the methods. So think about an area, everyone, we're making in this little masterclass, so people listening, an area you feel stuck. Only those three forces, it's unlimiting those three. So if someone could learn the right method on how to be healthy, but if their mindset is, I don't deserve this, or it's not possible for me, because your mindset is a set of assumptions and attitudes you have about something. So let's say you want to make more money, but your mindset is money is the root of all evil. You're not going to do that method or do it well because you feel like, or maybe your assumptions are anyone who has money, they hurt people or took advantage of people.
And there's so many like that, even for yourself, right? You might be thinking, oh, I'm an adult, I should be teaching my son how to be X, Y, and Z. But because you're open-minded, it's like, maybe I can learn from this 10-month-old of how to look at the world a different way, right? So always having that open mind and not limiting yourself. Yeah,
growth mindset, I mean, the opposite is a fixed mindset. And there are actually, other mindsets. But the idea here is with a child, you don't say this, wow, you are so smart, or you're a genius when it comes to learning. Because what happens is, what research shows is, when that child fails, which inevitably they will, they won't know what to do because it was an innate characteristic. Like they failed, and because they're a genius, they failed. There's something they could do, as opposed to rewarding and reinforcing. Wow, you worked really hard. I'm so proud of you. Right, the effort itself.
So effort-based versus
much more
like personality. So we're not meant to tell our children, "Wow, you're smart." Because it ultimately will hurt them in their long term, because then when they fail, it like kind of like bugs them, right?
Right, because there's nothing they could do. It's either they're smart or they're not smart, right? As opposed to, wow, I really admire like the focus you have when you're studying like that, or wow, good job, you really put in that effort, and that's more the focus. But that's area of the mindset. Motivation. People could have a limitless motivation. Limitless mindset and believe everything's possible, that they're capable, they deserve it, and still be stuck because they lack the second M, which is motivation, right? They're not motivated to get out of that box, and so there's 3 keys for motivation, limitless motivation. So if you're not getting yourself to work out, or reading, or meditating, or biohacking, or whatever it is, making those sales calls, whatever, there are 3 factors: P times E times S3. All right, so this is the key to not only motivating yourself, but it's also the key to motivating somebody else, like your kids, or someone you work with, or your significant other. So let's say working out is so good for your brain, right? When you work out, you create brain-derived neurotropic factors, BDNF, which is like fertilizer for neuroplasticity, right? It's great for your neurotransmitters. You're working out, it will help your dopamine, your serotonin, your endorphins. It lowers systemic inflammation in your body. There's so many benefits. It actually helps with insulin resistance. So many benefits for exercise, right? But if you're not doing it, P times E times S3. The P stands for purpose. We need a reason. Without a reason, you won't get the reward. Reasons reap results. Right? And so even if you don't have a reason to remember someone's name, you're not going to remember it. And most people, they could have a reason, but they're not acknowledging it. So even asking yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? Maybe to show the person respect, maybe to practice these things I learned on this podcast. Coming up with one reason will help. Remembering what you read, but also when it comes to feeling. And it has to be a feeling. Like a little while ago, I saw this person on the street, and I didn't recognize him, but I thought I knew him. Which is weird because I'm like a memory expert, right? And it wasn't until I heard his voice that I realized who it was, because he looked totally different.
Oh, wow.
And the backstory is the person was very unhealthy, extremely. And we tried to help him, mutual friends, but he would take pride in being unhealthy, in smoking, and you know what I mean? It was his identity.
That was his identity, yeah.
And I see him, and he looks refreshed. He looks 10 years younger. He lost all this weight. He has this glow. And I was like, wait. I was like, well, how do you do this? He was telling me all the biohacks and all the things he was doing. I was like, we've been telling you for like years to do this stuff. And he was like, yeah, and he tells me the story that, you know, he came back from a business trip and his daughter was crying hysterically. And she had this horrible nightmare that her father died, and it went, you know, pretty deep. And when he heard that, he found purpose. That's purpose. Because a lot of people know intellectually what they should do, but they don't do it because it has to go from your head to your heart. Then it'll go to your hands, right? Your behavior, right? So you could have vision, and, you know, and set goals here, but if you're not acting with your hands, it's just in your head, your heart, right? So you have to feel it. So that's purpose. But then someone can have limitless purpose and still not be motivated because they need the E, which is energy. Because like as you know, having a little one, I'm not sleeping very well, right? So if I haven't slept in 3 nights, I'm not gonna be very motivated to work out, right? If you ate a big processed meal that puts you in a food coma, you're not going to be very motivated to study or to read, right? And so the energy we talk about, just like on your podcast and our podcast and in the book, all the different ways to be able to, because you don't have energy, you generate energy. All the ways you can generate more energy, from the foods to managing your stress to positive peer group to optimizing your sleep, nootropics, all that. Now, the last thing I want to show people is you could have limitless purpose and limitless energy and still not be motivated, because you need S3. You need to do small, simple steps, because often what keeps us, if you haven't worked out, you know, we know exercise is good, but if that's not part of your routine, it could be too big. Like, you know, a lot of people say, I want to meet my soulmate and live happily ever after. I want to get 100,000 followers on social media. Or I want to build the next unicorn. I want to have the perfect body. It's just way too big. And so small, simple step is like, okay, maybe you can't get can't work out. A small, simple step, put on your running shoes. How about that? Like, we just did a podcast with this awesome biological dentist talking about how your oral health is related to your brain health, right? And we're talking about simple things beyond brushing, right? But we were talking about flossing a little bit, and it's so good for you. Like, if you can't get your kids to floss, maybe that's too big because it's a new habit. Get them to floss 1 tooth. That's a small, simple step. If they're not cleaning the disaster of a bedroom that they have, maybe putting 1 sock in a hamper, right? Yeah. Or if somebody, you know, if people see me on social media with Oprah or Elon or whoever, right?
The Rock, every single famous person on the planet.
But if they ask me how we bonded, a lot of these individuals, we bonded over books, because you read to succeed. Right? You know, because leaders are readers. You know, even Warren Buffett. But you don't
start with a 500-page book. You might start just go through Limitless through the chapter, right?
Exactly. So like opening a book would be a small, simple step. Reading 1 line would be a small, simple step. And nobody's going to stop at flossing 1 tooth or reading 1 line, right? Inch by inch, it's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's too hard.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So speaking of the new chapters, there's a brain test, different kinds of brains.
I love this so much.
So talk a little bit about different kinds of brain, how to support it, and can you guess what kind of brain do I have?
Just like with biohacking, how there's like personalized medicine based on your genetics, or there's personalized nutrition based on, let's say, your microbiome, right? We created like a personalized learning for people based on their cognitive type. And I realized working with clients one-on-one that not everything works for everybody, right? Just like not every food's for everybody, right? And I found that there's 4 buckets that people fall in terms of their brain type. And I call this your brain code, CODE, which is an acronym. And we made a quiz. It's free. There's nothing to buy. It takes 4 minutes to go through. It's at mybrainanimal.com. And in that, you'll discover your brain animal, right?
The test is also in the book.
It's also
in the book. So
yes. And in the book, we go deeper in the research because it's very prescriptive, because based on your animal, that informs how you could be reading better and learning better and
how to crash at work. And
absolutely. And how to communicate better with other animals. So it's like, I pulled from a lot of sciences and psychologies, like personality types, tests like Myers-Briggs, introvert, extrovert, multiple intelligence theory, lateral dominance, like left brain, right brain dominance, and learning styles, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So, and it's like so simple and elegant, but let's go through the animals. The C is your cheetah. Your cheetah is, they're fast acting. They love to implement. They don't just learn for the sake of learning, they apply, right? They thrive in fast-paced environments. They are quick to adjust and adapt, and they have very strong intuition.
Like Richard Branson, I think you mentioned in the book.
Yes.
Is an example.
Would be an example.
Yeah.
Richard Branson acts, Serena Williams would be a cheetah.
Which I love that you say that intuition is part of your brain, because people think it's just a feeling, but it actually is some sort of it's an alignment, right? With mind, body, and soul. Is that intuition of like, this feels right?
It's part of all of our genius, when we could be able to be quiet and be able to listen to that instinct and intuition. The O in code are your owls.
Yeah.
And they are very logical. They love data, facts, and figures, and formulas. And now just think about it. A cheetah and an owl would learn different. They would invest different. They would parent different, right?
And the Albert Einstein quote that you have in the book right there, which is like, if you judge a fish by its ability to fly, it should feel something
or
like that. I'm sorry,
or do anything. Yeah. It's just,
I'm butchering the quote, but that's the idea.
The essence of it is not, going back to what we talked about earlier, it's not how smart you are, it's how are you smart. So once you understand how you're smart, you could apply it in magical ways. So an owl would be, they love data, they love facts, they're very organized, and everything's very logical. The D in code are your dolphins, and these are your creative visionaries. They are great problem solvers. They have this incredible imagination where they could kind of even see the future before others can, where they could visualize it, and maybe other people, like a Walt Disney, a J.K. Rowling's would fall under that. And also this would also inform what jobs you take, career paths, right?
Yeah.
Based on your...
But also as an employer, wouldn't you want to send every single person that works for you to Jim Kwik's test and be like, oh, I know how to make the most advantage? Or maybe the person that's in marketing shouldn't be there because she's an owl and I'm asking her to be creative. I need a dolphin.
Yeah,
for example.
or your financial person, should be probably more an owl. They'll have traits as opposed to a dolphin who's, very creative with the numbers, right?
That should be your accountant.
Right. And then the E in code are your elephants. And these are your empaths. These are people who bring people together. They collaborate. They learn. Other people might learn solo. They love learning social, right? And they're the ones that bring people together. So even if you take pop culture, like if we were to take Harry Potter, right? I mentioned J.K. Rowling's. It would be, Harry Potter would be a cheetah, always in the fray, adjusting and adapting. The owl, Hermione, right? It's very studious, reading all these books, always very logical thinking. I would say Hagrid would be an elephant. Hagrid brought everyone, he's so loyal, brings all the kids together. They bring a center of community. And Dumbledore, the leader, the headmaster, would be the creative visionary, the wizard, if you will. And so you could take
I'm trying
anything
to figure out which one you are.
Yeah.
Because that's a tough one.
Oh, and I want to guess what you are also as well.
Yeah, so you go first. I didn't tell Jim. I took the test and he's like, what are you? I'm like, oh, you have to guess on the show.
Well, I would imagine people who are watching or listening to this is not my answer, but I would imagine you would be strong in the area of creative because they see you as a creator. Some people could see you as a creator, right? The things you put out are very aesthetically pleasing, and you create things like books and courses and everything. If I was to guess, that would be your secondary. But I also know you very well, and you take action. You jump out of planes, you go places, you learn something, and you make those up. You do things. So if I was to guess, you would be a cheetah.
Dang.
Yeah?
Yes.
No way.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh my God. I feel so seen through. Yeah, I'm a cheetah.
And the beautiful thing about this is nobody's just one, right? We're all a composite. I'm sure when you're going through the quiz, they're like, oh, I could be this or this kind of close answer, and you just pick the one.
Yeah, I wanted to be a dolphin. I'm like, I want to be the creative one, and they're like, no, you just act on your intuition.
But I bet you, the dolphin could have been a strong second for you, because you also have a lot of those traits, and we're not limited to just one. Just like, if you use your right hand, doesn't mean you don't use your left hand. You're just strongest, you know, and that's the idea here. But
I'm so curious about you, because part of me thinks you're an owl because everything is so thought throughout. Like, there's no mistake. Like, what you do is so intentional, and I feel like there's no coincidence behind everything you do. You're so well prepared for every interview. I don't even have to ask questions. Like, everyone else would be just, you know, relying on me, and Jim's like, no, I got it. Like, so that's part of me that I would think you might be an owl, but you're also extremely creative, and the concepts you come up with, so I'm torn between the two.
I mean, I see traits just like I'm sure everybody does in the descriptions that I have in all these things. I am a very strong owl. I lean also equally with creative, dolphin, and elephant. So it's interesting. My owl is very dominant.
I thought you were so antisocial.
No. Okay, but also the defining characteristic.
That's what threw me off.
No. Without a doubt. But and I didn't emphasize this. The defining attribute of an elephant is empathy.
Okay,
and
perfect.
maybe because I was marginalized and bullied, you know, I had this sense of people, because I would just watch and feel people all day long at school and just wonder. And hopefully,
when you see Jim at a public event, he's just in the corner, just watching, and I'm like, you're the biggest one of all of them. And he's just like, I'm just hanging out. I'm like, which is beautiful, but you're very introverted. But I definitely see empathy and putting yourself in other people's shoes.
But my dominant, though, is an owl. You're absolutely right.
Yay.
And my secondaries is very close between dolphin and elephant. You know, while I love a cheetah and love to act, you know, we have those on team. And it's interesting because even our team, our customer experience, our customer support team, they're all elephants.
Wow.
Because they bring community. They're community managers. They have a lot of empathy, and they're there to be able to have people's backs.
Do you have access to people's tests so you can see what seems to be the most prevalent type of
I don't know
brain?
if we've ever done. We should ask the team. I could let you know.
That would be super cool to know.
In terms of the ratios.
Yeah, because it would be super safe. Because it's like, it could be your, the whole point of these tests is to like, to work with your biology, not against it, and then realize like, okay, cool, like you become an expert at identifying, so you meet other people, and I'm like, well, instead of getting upset with my fiance at X, Y, and Z, you can be like, okay, he's an owl, he's slow.
And it takes a judgment off of, you know,
how do I use him?
it takes a judgment off of like that we have on people, and also our self-judgment.
Yeah.
So we realize, I think part of it is having the curiosity to know yourself, and then having the courage to be that person, be yourself also. But you know, people go to therapy to get to know themselves, or they journal to get to know themselves, and they meditate because they get to know themselves. And I think assessments are a great way to get to know yourself. Just like when you're biohacking, you can do your DNA test, right?
Yeah,
you
or a ring, right?
Yeah. Where we all have, absolutely. And so, and I think the more you get to know yourself, the more you love yourself also as well, because you get to appreciate, like, even the things that I struggle with the most, that I was most ashamed of, are the things that I'm proud of now. Yeah. Right, and that's part of our own evolution.
I also love that in the book, just to change the topic a little bit, is you embracing AI, because basically AI is epic, no doubt about it. I use it all the time, and there's obviously this big fear that it's making people dumb, right? Because we're not thinking anymore, and I often find myself going to AI instead of Google. But instead of just maybe sitting down and asking myself, can I answer this question myself, right? It's like a good backup. I'm like, let's see what my chat GDP tells me. But I love that in the book you basically walk people through how to get smarter with AI instead of letting AI make you dumb.
I mean, our stance on it is that technology is a tool for us to use, and it can support us to be able to be more productive, to perform better, to make us more profitable, and give us greater peace of mind, hopefully. The challenge is sometimes if we're over-reliant on it, it stores all our phone numbers. And I don't want to memorize 500 phone numbers, but it should be concerning we've lost the ability to remember one.
Yeah.
or
I
a
still
PIN
remember
number.
my grandma's phone number. She's
Really?
no longer with us, but yeah, I do, because you had to dial.
Yeah, back then you had to, and it was like
I'm
muscle
sure you
memory or
remember some
something.
of the phone
Of
numbers
course.
from back then, but I genuinely don't know Jacob's, my fiance, phone
Yeah.
number
And,
anymore.
and someone you call or text, FaceTime every single day,
Yeah.
right, or WhatsApp. And that's the challenge. So technology, our approach is technology is not good or bad, it's just how it's applied. Like fire is a form of technology, and it could cook your food or it could burn down your home, right? It's just how it's used. The challenge is if we're too dependent on it, then technology can make us distracted. Technology can give us a digital deluge where we're overloaded because technology gives us too much information. It could also lead, they call it digital dementia, that idea where it's like an external hard drive for memory, so we don't have to exercise. But just like my shirt says, it says use it or lose it. Our brains are an organ, but it acts more like a muscle. So for example, I always bring things back to the physical. If you needed to go to the bank and it's 6 blocks away, if you're to drive, yes, it's convenient, but also your body doesn't get the exercise.
Yeah.
If your office or your home is on the 6th floor, you could take the elevator or lift, or you could take the stairs, right? And so technology is convenient, but it's a balance between convenience and also doing the work, right? Because
and same for the brain, right? It's convenient to just go to ChatGPT and ask him. It's so funny. I wish I had my phone on me, because I even ask him, hey, ChatGPT, what questions should I ask Jim Kwik?
Yeah.
Just
Okay,
for the
cool.
fun of it. I was like,
Yeah.
I would be curious. And yeah, it went to what's the dark side of becoming too limitless?
Right,
So
right.
it went pretty creative.
That's awesome. And then the other thing,
And it did say, wow, congratulations on booking Jim Kwik.
yeah, that's smart AI. But even relying on technology, there's also this digital deduction challenge where if you have to get from here to there, we don't have the visual spatial intelligence as we would if we're relying on a GPS system to take us from there to there. We don't get to build that part of our brain. But I take a proactive approach with AI. I think it could help us tremendously to improve our HI, or human intelligence. You could use examples like you just did, to help you create more. And I don't think it's going to replace people. I think people who are using AI are going to replace people who don't use it.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It's like not using the internet. You're at a huge disadvantage. So ways that you could use it to improve you could use AI to test your reading speed, your reading comprehension. When it comes to learning, simple things like, Jim used the word neuroplasticity. Explain neuroplasticity to me as if I am 8 years old. That's wonderful, right? It could give you some kind of base knowledge in a very short period of time.
Can I actually grab my phone and let's see what it says? I would love to just see the feedback on that. And
without a doubt.
Because it's very actionable. I love that thank you.
7 minutes.
Perfect. I love that your whole book is very actionable. It's not another textbook that you just read and you're like, okay, I want to get smarter, but I feel like I need to be smart already to understand what's inside.
Right.
No, you reading it, I'm like, damn, I'm smart. I understand everything he's saying, which is great. Everything's super clear. So let's just give it a little prompt. Explain Sorry, Peanut. Actually, I'm just going to talk to it. It needs to change the language. Neuroplasticity as if I'm a 8-year-old. Yeah, let's see what it says. All right, so imagine your brain is like a big city with lots of roads. These roads are how your thoughts and memories travel. So when you're young, the city is still being built, so new roads are popping up all the time. That's why it's easier to learn things like riding a bike or a new language. And neuroplasticity is like the construction crew for your brain city. When you learn something new or practice a lot, the construction crew makes those roads stronger and faster.
I love that.
Yeah, it's super good.
Yeah. And how wonderful. And I love, that's what a cheetah would do, by the way. They would immediately act and then test things out.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh, great, I know how to do it.
Yeah. And so this is the thing. It's one of those things where it's, for example, on our podcast, I like to receive the books, obviously, but sometimes I don't get the book in time. And I don't like to read on screens so much because I don't need another excuse to be on a screen. But you could ask for a book summary, right? Mm-hmm. put it into an AI chat and just saying, can you please give me a summary for this, or ask questions for this? And you can even use retrieval practice. So when your memory, you have three parts to remember something. You encode it, you store it, you retrieve it. And retrieval practice is actually a wonderful way to build your memory, by testing yourself and quizzing yourself. Because it's not just pushing information in, it's pulling it out to see if it's really there. And then it reinforces that neuroplasticity, the roads and the construction workers that are working on this. So you have about, 86 billion brain cells, neurons, and each of those have up to 10,000 synapses connections. So the potential connections are more than there are stars in this universe, right?
Wow.
It is vast. That's the power that we have, between our ears. And so going back to this conversation, you could ask it to retrieve information. So if you want to know, they could ask you questions about neuroplasticity to see how much actually was retained. Or even if you want to mind map, it's a wonderful note-taking technique that we talk about in Limitless. You could say, hey, mind map this subject matter for me, like sales or marketing or biohacking, and it'll actually spit out different structures. We teach something in Limitless Expanded using a mind palace, and it's a powerful way the ancient Greeks used to memorize speeches and poetry.
Right, like you move between one room to another.
Right,
yeah.
using locations or parts of your body or some, maybe your home or your office, and storing your topics that you want to remember, facts or points to a speech in different locations, and you're just walking around that location in order to be able to remember what you need to do next or what you need to buy next at the supermarket. And so you could go into GPT and say, hey, build for me a memory palace for this subject matter, right?
Beautiful. Or like you can almost like upload the speech and just say, can you build a memory palace for that speech for me? So it's 2 days I'm doing a TED Talk.
Exactly. And then that's the perfect example. So many different ways to be able to use AI to enhance your HI, and people don't need to be intimidated, just like with biohacking. It's just small, simple steps.
Yeah, I love that you included that in Limitless and truly embraced it, which is great.
Yeah.
Just to sum up, is there any box that you think that you still need to break out of in your life?
Blocks?
Like
limits.
boxes, do you feel like you still live in some sort of boxes? Are there any limits or glass ceilings that you have put on yourself that you're still kind of trying to?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm definitely human. And we are all evolving in different ways, and we all have, if we're healthy, there are probably areas if we want to grow. Unless we want anything to settle, then there's no reason. I push myself like you do in areas. I feel like life is difficult for two reasons. Either we're leaving our comfort zone, in terms of we're redrawing the borders and boundaries of those limits, or life is difficult because we're staying in our comfort zone. Then life could be pretty difficult also as well. And so I, like you, yeah, exactly. Choose your heart. It's hard to be broke. It's hard to start a business or a brand and build something. You choose it. It's hard to be sick, and sometimes it's hard to get healthy, but we choose our heart. And going back to the power of choice, that's everything. And just reminding us that we have agency. Personally, well, this parenthood thing is really throwing me, right? So I'm feel limited in that I'm traveling, doing a book tour, and while I was away, my son said "Dada" for the first time.
Oh.
He started to crawl for the first time. This was all during travel, so that's hard. And so part of me feels limited, trying to balance that. And
thank you for sharing, because I think a lot of parents can relate, right? That it's that there is. I always like to think, when my friend the other day was just like, I think like I'm not being a perfect mom. I'm like, that's what makes you perfect, because we're meant to screw up, right? We're meant to show our children that it's not about getting everything right. Because if you became this perfect parent that gets everything right,
I don't even know what perfect would look like. For me, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress, right? And it's not even about balance. We hear that a lot. For me, it's about harmony. Meaning the words we use affect balance. For me sounds very sometimes stressful. Maybe because I relate it to like a balance beam. If you look
I
up
feel
the
like balance
definition,
is like I need to do breath work and meditation and eat healthy every single day.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
And if you look up the word balance in a dictionary, it's about having equal weight. And I don't want to spend equal amount of time at work as I do in the gym. right? Like, and you know, so it's like equal, but it's more harmony is, if you have an orchestra, not everything is balanced, meaning not every person or instrument plays an equal amount of time, or, right? But it comes together in a perfect way that creates
and it ebbs
an art.
and flows.
Yeah,
depending on
and it creates a harmony.
Oh, beautiful!
And I feel like life could be that for all of us. But I am here to say for everyone that's listening and watching that when it comes to being limitless, we've discovered more about the human brain in the past 20 years than probably the past 2,000 years combined. And what we've found is we're grossly underestimating our own capabilities. And so my message for everybody is, it's normal to have doubts. It's normal to have fears. It's normal to procrastinate. And what are we going to do about it, right? Because the problem is, in society, sometimes we do feel like we're a victim, so we make excuses or we complain. And they could be all valid, but nothing changes. That's the problem, right? It wastes a lot of energy, it wastes a lot of time. And the truth is, I'm going in my coaching mode, but the truth is, we can't.
It's good. It's usually so expensive, guys. Use it. It's free.
but part of it is not just reinforcing what people already know, is calling them on their stuff. And we can't be upset by the results we didn't get from the work we didn't do.
Ooh.
And some of us are so addicted to learning and buying books and everything, but they don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
And my call to action for people who are listening is, obviously you love to learn because you're watching and listening to this conversation. And what I'm here to say is the difference that makes a difference are the people who could access more of their cheetah and put things into action. Because knowledge is not power. It has the potential to be power. Knowledge times action is a whole lot of power. And so I truly believe that there's a version of yourself that's patiently waiting. And the goal is we just show up for ourselves every single day until we're introduced to that person.
So my wish is that we will break even more limits with the book. And what was it, 7 days above Obama? Let's do it. 7 weeks above Obama. Because I think it's I still have the original book, but I definitely will get the updated one. Because I just love everything that you've added, over 100 pages on top of what's already been there. It's also a great gift.
And we also, this is...
a no-brainer, pun intended.
A no-brainer. I love that. I love that. Yeah, give the gift of learning. This book will help you learn every other book. Literally will help you. This is, in Lord of the Rings, they say the one ring that controls them all. This is the one book that will help you learn, remember, focus, retain, apply all the other books. You know, I feel like I wrote it because I wanted it to be a lead domino, like that first domino that makes everything in your life easier after that. And people can get it at limitlessbook.com, and when they do, they'll get some bonus brain training. So when the book arrives, you already have gone through some training on speed reading, memory, and everything. So and
then part of your email list, and I know you're doing a lot of lives these days, like teaching people how to become more limitless. And Instagram is at Jim Kwik.
Yeah, I would love for people actually to take the quiz. Go to mybrainanimal.com and then actually post. We have AI generated art that you could post, tag us both in it, and then so we get to see it, and I'll actually repost a few and then gift out a few copies to your community, just as a
and that way we'll see like people that are listening to this podcast, what kind of
right. Yeah, I want to know.
Yeah, I want to know too. Jim, thank you so much for coming. You're the best, and so excited for this book. I cannot wait for it to break even more limits, and I'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much also for your work and your friendship. It means everything.
Thank you.